Restaurant owner Richard told me this restaurant isn't for people like you and kicked me out. 3 years later, when I saw him having a heart attack, I saved his life even though I knew he was racist. From that day, both our lives changed completely. My name is Dr. Samuel Washington. I'm 34 years old and I'm an emergency medicine specialist at Boston City Hospital. This story happened 3 years ago, when I was still a medical resident. At that time, I lived in a small apartment in Boston's Back Bay neighborhood. There was an Italian restaurant called Giuseppe's Fine Dining in the neighborhood. It was a very elegant place. Always busy, even making a reservation was difficult. But their food was really excellent. One Friday evening, I had a very difficult shift at the hospital. 3 trauma cases, 1 heart attack, countless stitches. I was tired and hungry. On my way home, I was passing in front of Giuseppe's. Maybe I'll have a quick dinner, I thought. The moment I entered, I felt the atmosphere. The restaurant was full, mostly white professionals. I was dressed casually, instead of scrubs, but still felt out of place. I approached the host stand. A young woman saw me and gave me a friendly smile. "Good evening. Table for 1. "Yes, please. If you have availability." "Let me check," she said, while looking at the reservation book. Just then a voice came from behind. "Monica, what's going on there?" I turned around. A middle-aged man with obvious Italian heritage, wearing an expensive suit, was approaching. It was Richard Marcelli, the owner of Giuseppe's. Monica spoke with him in a low voice, but I heard, "Richard, this gentleman wants a table." Richard looked at me. I saw immediate judgment in his eyes. He did a head-to-toe scan as if, "Sir," he said to me. But it wasn't friendly. "I'm afraid we don't have any availability tonight." It seemed strange because Monica was checking availability just before. "Monica was checking availability just now," I said politely. "Well, she was mistaken," Richard said harshly. "We're completely booked." At that moment, I could clearly see empty tables behind him. But I didn't want to argue. "Okay, no problem. Maybe another time." As I was about to leave, Richard said loudly to Monica, but deliberately for me to hear, "Monica, this isn't the kind of place these types of customers come to. We need to maintain the neighborhood standards. If people like this come, our regular customers will be uncomfortable." At that moment, I stopped dead. People like this was clearly about my race. I turned and looked at him. "Excuse me, what did you just say?" Richard became uncomfortable but went on the defensive. "Sir, this is a high-end establishment. We cater to a specific clientele. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at other establishments." "Other establishments? What do you mean by that?" "I think you understand what I mean," he said coldly. At that moment, everything became clear. In 2021, in Boston, there were still people like this. "I understand perfectly," I said quietly. "Thank you for making your position clear." I left the restaurant, but inside I was burning, not just angry, disappointed, because I couldn't believe I was still encountering such situations. When I got home, I told my roommate Jake. Jake was a white guy, a friend from medical school. "Dude, that's completely unacceptable," he said. "You should report this. File a complaint." "Jake, what complaint?" he said. "We don't have availability. I can't prove it was racism." "But you heard what he said to Monica. One witness, and she's an employee. She's probably afraid of losing her job." Jake was right, of course, but I was thinking about other things. The most important thing I learned working in the medical field. First, do no harm. Taking revenge would be harmful, not just to Richard, but to Monica and other employees too. Still, I couldn't forget the situation. I passed that restaurant every day going to work. Every time I remembered that evening. 3 months later, something interesting happened. Giuseppe's posted on social media, "We're proud to announce Giuseppe's is now hiring, looking for experienced servers who understand fine dining and can maintain our establishment's standards." The comments section was a disaster. There was a lot of negative feedback. Apparently, other people had experienced similar situations at the restaurant too. There were subtle racism hints in the reviews. But I still took no action. What I was focused on was my medical training. Dr. Patricia Chen, my supervisor, was constantly challenging me. "Samuel," she would say, "emergency medicine is about quick decisions under pressure, but also about treating every patient with equal care. Race, class, background, nothing matters. Only the medical need matters." These words resonated deeply with me. especially after the Giuseppe's incident. Months passed. I was excelling in my medical training. Under Dr. Chen's mentorship, I was learning to handle trauma cases, cardiac emergencies, stroke cases, accident victims. Every day, life or death decisions. I was trying to forget Giuseppe's. Sometimes I was successful, sometimes not. Then that day came. One Thursday afternoon, I was working a normal shift in the emergency room. Nurse Sarah ran to me. Dr. Washington, ambulance is coming. 58-year-old male, chest pain, possible MI. MI myocardial infarction, heart attack, ETA, 3 minutes. We prepared immediately. Crash cart ready. Defibrillator. Stand by. IV lines prepared. The ambulance arrived, paramedics rushed in. As I was about to see the patient lying on the gurney, I stopped cold. It was Richard Marcelli, the owner of Giuseppe's, the man who was racist to me. His face was pale, sweating, obviously in distress. Classic heart attack symptoms. In that moment, a million thoughts flashed through my mind. This is the guy who humiliated you. Let someone else handle this. He doesn't deserve your help. Remember what he said about your kind. But then I heard Dr. Chen's voice. Race, class, background, maize. Nothing matters. Only the medical need matters. Get him to trauma bay 2. I said immediately. Richard was now unconscious. We attached an EKG. Obvious STEMI myocardial infarction, massive heart attack. Without immediate intervention, he could die. Dr. Washington, Sarah said. Cath lab is ready for emergency PCI. PCI Maya's percutaneous coronary intervention, angioplasty to open the blocked artery. Prep him for transport. I said, call Dr. Rodriguez. Tell him we have a STEMI coming up. At that moment, Richard briefly became conscious. His eyes opened, confused, scared. He saw me. Recognition flashed across his face. He panicked more. Wait, you're that guy from the restaurant. Yes, I am, I said calmly. And right now I'm your doctor. You're having a heart attack, and we need to get you to surgery immediately. I don't want Mr. Marcelli, I said firmly, but gently. You're going to die without treatment. I don't care what happened between us. My job is to save your life. Richard looked at me. Beyond fear, I saw something else, shame. Why? Why would you help me? Because that's what doctors do, I said simply. I took him to the cath lab personally. Dr. Rodriguez, one of the best interventional cardiologists, performed the procedure. I assisted. The surgery took 2 hours. Massive blockage in the left anterior descending artery. But we got it open. Blood flow was restored. Richard survived. The next few days, I checked on him regularly during rounds. He was obviously uncomfortable, but grateful. On day 3, he asked to talk privately. Dr. Washington, he said quietly, I need to say something. I listened. That night at my restaurant, what I said, how I treated you. It was inexcusable. I waited for him to continue. I was raised in a different time, different neighborhood. My father, his father, they had views. I thought I knew better, but clearly I didn't. Mr. Marcelli, please let me finish. His eyes were watery. You saved my life. After I treated you like you were less than human, you could have let me die. Any other person might have. No, I said firmly. Any other doctor would have done the same thing. This is what medical professionals do. But you're not just any doctor, he said. You're the doctor I discriminated against, and you still saved me. I looked at him for a long moment. Mr. Marcelli, I became a doctor to help people, all people. Your race, my race, what happened between us? None of that matters when someone's life is in danger, Richard cried then. Full breakdown. I'm so ashamed, he said through tears. I have grandchildren. What if they knew? What if they saw how their grandfather treated people? Then change, I said. It's never too late to change. After Richard was discharged, something unexpected happened. I hadn't planned to go to the restaurant, but one evening walking home, I saw Monica outside. Dr. Washington, she said, running over. I heard what happened, what you did for Richard. I just did my job. No, it was more than that. Richard told us everything about that night, about what he said. He's completely different now. Different how? He made us sit through diversity training, real training, not fake corporate stuff. He hired a consultant, and she paused. He's been asking about you, wants to thank you properly. He already did. No, he wants to do something bigger. A few days later, Richard called me. Dr. Washington, would you consider having dinner at Giuseppe's as my guest? I want to apologize properly. I hesitated. Mr. Marcelli, you don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. Please. I finally agreed. That Friday night, when I went to the restaurant, everything felt different. The staff smiled genuinely. The atmosphere was warmer. Richard personally greeted me at the door. Dr. Washington, welcome to Giuseppe's. I sat down and ordered. The food was excellent as always. During dinner, Richard sat with me. I want to tell you what's changed, he said. After the heart attack, after you saved me, I couldn't stop thinking about my life, my values, my behavior. Okay. I started reading about racism, about privilege, about history. I never learned properly. I talked to my daughter. She's been trying to tell me these things for years. I listened. I've made changes, real changes. Giuseppe's now has diversity training for all staff. We partner with community organizations. We donate meals to underserved communities. That's good to hear. But more importantly, he said, looking directly at me, I want to ask for your forgiveness. The moment hung between us. Mr. Marcelli, you don't need my forgiveness to change. You need to forgive yourself and commit to being better. But I do need it, he said quietly. Not to feel better about myself, but to understand the weight of my actions. I thought about it carefully. I forgive you, I said finally. But forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It's a starting point, not an ending. Richard nodded. I understand, and I want you to know Giuseppe's will always be your home. Anytime, anything you need. From that night, everything changed. Giuseppe's became genuinely inclusive. Richard hired diverse staff, partnered with local community groups, even started a scholarship program for underprivileged kids interested in culinary arts. But more than that, he became an advocate. He started speaking at community events about racism and redemption. He used his story as a teaching moment. 6 months later, I was featured in the Boston Herald. Local doctor saves life of man who discriminated against him. The story went viral. Richard called me after the article. Samuel, can I call you Samuel? I want you to know that article changed my life again. The responses I got, people sharing their own stories of discrimination, of forgiveness, of change. I never realized how common this was. It's more common than you think. I want to do more. What can I do? That conversation led to something beautiful. Richard started a nonprofit named Second Chances Community Foundation. It focuses on diversity education, community healing, and supporting people who've experienced discrimination. I joined the board. Today, Giuseppe's is one of Boston's most inclusive restaurants. Richard regularly speaks at schools, community centers, hospitals about racism and redemption, and we've become surprisingly friends. Last month, he asked me to be the godfather to his grandson. Samuel, he said, I want my grandson to grow up knowing you, to understand that good people respond to hatred with love, to discrimination with healing. I accepted. Sometimes people ask me, weren't you angry? Didn't you want revenge? The answer is yes, I was angry. But revenge wouldn't have changed anything. Saving his life, showing him a different way to be Middles that changed everything. The night Richard discriminated against me was one of the worst nights of my year. But the day I saved his life became one of the most meaningful days of my career. Not because I proved a point, but because I proved something more important, that healing is always possible. And love really can overcome hate. Giuseppe's is now my favorite restaurant in Boston. Not because the food changed, it was always great, but because the heart of the place changed. And sometimes, that's the most important kind of change of all. Richard's racism made me angry, but I didn't try to kill him. Instead, I saved his life. Because taking revenge wouldn't have changed him, but showing mercy changed both of us. Sometimes the strongest revenge is not taking revenge. Sometimes saving someone's life also saves their soul. And sometimes the way to turn enemies into friends is to show them the compassion they don't deserve.